Yeah, this is the Teachings to the Assemblies, text number 52. Let me look for this. Okay. So this text, just very briefly. So each time I share one of these translations with you, I want to say a few words. Then the general words is of the general thing to, I think most of you know, because we have been commissioning, sponsoring the translation of these short teachings by Jigten Sumgun. The interesting thing is that so far there is so little that has been translated from Jigten Sumgun's teachings. In fact, there is more that has been translated from various masters of the Drigong Kagyo lineage, people who came after Jigten Sumgun. Of course, you know, these things are important and good to translate, but it's ironic that we have so little that has been translated into English from Jigten Sumgun's own words and teachings. Part of it has to do with, I think, a certain reluctance to translate them because it's felt like they are so special. That's the irony. And in fact, also not read by those who know how to read Tibetan, because again, there's a feeling like it is so special that if we don't read them right, if we don't read them, you know, with the right understanding, then something so precious might turn into something misunderstood, and then that would be very bad. So this is a common attitude that you have found in various Buddhist contexts, and even beyond Buddhist in the history of religions. Sometimes a particular collection of texts or teachings are considered so amazing, so precious. And then the irony is it ends up being nobody studying or benefiting from those words because they are so sacred, right? Sort of like at one time the Bible in Christianity was so sacred that practically nobody read it. So I think to some degree, Kyobpa Rinpoche's teachings have been kind of treated this way. In fact, I remember His Holiness saying how Gongchik, what we're studying now, for, you know, there is a sense that, you know, this is so profound that unless someone is very, very, very educated in the general Buddhist system, and general doesn't mean, you know, like here and there reading a little bit, you know, meaning, you know, unless you have, you know, gone through the Kempo or Geshe study program, you know, 10, 15 years of intensive study, even then, you know, you only have a baseline understanding. Then you need to do more study and perhaps even do meditation retreats before you should even look at one statement from the Gongchik. There's something to be said about that, of course. You know, I think if you don't have enough background, the Gongchik is just not very interesting, perhaps, to you. And if that's the impression you walk away from being exposed too early to something like the Gongchik, then you will dismiss, you know, it and therefore create an obstacle. So there's something to be said about that sentiment that, this is so profound, or this is so amazing, that unless you have been preparing for it, you should not kind of accidentally, being exposed to it and then think that, this is just nothing. So I think the same towards Kyobpa Rinpoche's teachings. As I said, in Kyobpa Rinpoche's collection of teachings, there are 12 volumes. I think the teachings to the assembly constitute maybe 1 or 2 volumes, or maybe even less. So even the teachings to the assemblies, Sokchu, it's a small collection, but over 300 different texts in this Sokchu. There's another collection called Zapchu. Zapchu is the profound teachings. Something like even guarded even more closely. But then now, of course, all of this is published. And anyone who knows how to read Tibetan, can read them. Regarding this issue, I've kind of asked various lamas, senior lamas. I've asked His Holiness what they think about that, and they said that it's okay. In part, in the past, very few people are educated, just in basic education. So few people are educated, and so there was a greater need to kind of protect the integrity of these texts. Then they say, now people are very educated, general worldly education, have a lot of life experience. And so, people with interest, with devotion, it's fine, So anyway, so there is a dearth of material directly from Kyobpa Rinpoche. As I said, back and forth, all the Drigong Lamas teaching in the West and even teaching in Asia are relying from a handful of Jigten Sumgun material that Khenchen Rinpoche translated up years ago, 20 years ago. But until now, people are still just asking and receiving teachings on that handful of texts that was first published in one short collection called Prayer Flags by Snow Lion many, many years ago. A very thin book, Prayer Flags. There's maybe like 10, 12 songs of Kyobpa Rinpoche. And, people just recycle that again and again and again and again. Not that, we cannot get more each time we are taught those handful of texts. But it's also, I think, time for us to be exposed to more and more teachings from this Kyobpa Rinpoche, from his text, from his collection, his collected works. So thanks to your interest and your support, primarily, there's less than a handful of other people who are not in our Gongchik class who is also supporting this effort, but primarily through your interest, your generosity, we have been able to fund this translation. Of course, the translators that we're working with, they have other commitments, they have other primary means of making their living, so they give us the time that they have whenever they can. So it's not, we don't have the resources to fully employ, these two people to work fully on this material. But we make do, what we can. And again, thank you to all of you who have been contributing. Some of you have been making it rather regular. I regularly hear from you, and I appreciate that. This is going to be very helpful, I think. So the plan also is, as I've said, once we have a good collection, then we're going to publish this. The first time publishing it, I think it will be not through any of the major publishing, either Wisdom or Shambhala, First, we will publish them ourselves into a good, nice, handsome volume that we will circulate among Drigong Kagyu people, and then particularly Drigong Kagyu teachers that are teaching in English. And I think it would be very useful for them. And then, then later on, if the causes and conditions are there, we might look at publishing this as a volume through one of the two major publishers of Tibetan Buddhist and Buddhist books in the US. We see, also before I actually publish even the first way, I want to sit down, if possible, with Khenchen Rinpoche to go through the translations. So far, he has been very happy with the translations. He has looked at quite a number of them, and he feels that the translators are good in not only understanding the Tibetan, but that it has been very smooth and poetic choices that are made for these words. And quite a bit of work actually goes on. First, the translators do their translation, and then I do my editing. I give my feedback, and we talk, and sometimes, for hours, we will talk about a particular line, and then they consult whoever they can find on the Tibetan side, which has been a little not so smooth or stable. Different people have worked with these two translators at different points. Also, the main translator, I want to say, he is not a Drigong person, but he's very good with the Tibetan. All these two young men, the main person is not a Drigong Kagyu person. He's a Nyingma person, but Cho Rinpoche's student. But he has, when I approached him, because I know him personally, he used to be in Nashville. When I approached him, he said, can I work with this other person who is a Drigong person? Then I said, sure. So he recruited this other person, Sean. This other person, he mostly has done the more Nyingma material within Drigong. Within Drigong, there's a whole, kind of emphasis on more Nyingma things, particularly the 17th throne holder, Rinchen Punso, have a lot of Nyingma material, including thermas that he discovered. So Sean has been mostly working on Rinchen Punso's material. So Kyobpa Rinpoche's material is also new to him. Then more recently, Lo, the main translator, also suggested bringing another translator into the picture. And both these are sort of junior translators. And Lo's intention, he said, is to help train Drigong young translators. So I'm very grateful to what Lo is doing, even though, he feels like, and both of these junior translators are his friends. I mean, junior, senior. I mean, Lo is no more older than them, but Lo, his experience and his mastery of Tibetan is very impressive. Must be Tibetan in his past life, immediate past life. And so he has said, I want to take Stefan and see if he's interested and do my part, he said, to help polish these younger Drigong, potentially Drigong translators. So just to say, that your help in financing this project is helping to train Drigong translators. Since, all of us don't read Tibetan directly, then, whatever we are able to receive comes from the kindness of translators. emphasize translators that much. But if you really think about it, it's the kindness of the translators that we have access to these teachings. Anyway, text 42, it says, on not being mistaken in viewing this illusory mirror of mind. So it begins with Namoratna Guru, homage to the precious guide, precious Guru. When the victorious protector Amitayu became a bodhisattva in the pure land of perfection, the world system of Sukhavati, everything arose by the power of intentions conditioned by the mind. Don't be discouraged, O yogi. So here in this short teaching, even in these sections, they all end with don't be discouraged. Next one is don't be so proud. Next one is don't fall into wrong views. So these three. And so the first three sections is basically Kyobpa Rinpoche saying, the first one, don't be discouraged. And so the example he used is, he said, so Amitayu and Amitabha, actually, these names are interchangeable. It's just that in later Tibetan Buddhism, they have become kind of specialized into two Buddhas. Amitayu is long life. Amitabha is like rebirth in the Pure Land. But in the early material, in the Indian side, in fact, Amitayu and Amitabha are like variant names of the same Buddha. Of course, even in later Tibetan Buddhism, they'll say Amitayu and Amitabha are the same. But Amitayu is in the Sambhogakaya form and whose qualities are more related to longevity. And Amitabha is the Nirmanakaya aspect, appearance, and is related to rebirth in the Pure Land. But when Kyobpa Rinpoche is writing this, or teaching this, it shows that these two names are used interchangeably. So here is not so much talking about the longevity aspect of the deity. He's talking about the Pure Land aspect. So he said, where did this Pure Land called Sukhavati come from? This Pure Land called Sukhavati is the result of Buddha Amitabha, Buddha Amitayu's mind. From his aspirations, from his vows. So it is said that Buddha Amitabha, when he's on the bodhisattva level, particularly in one lifetime where he was a monk called Dharmakara. So as Dharmakara, he made 48 vows, or 48 aspirations. And many of these 48 vows or aspirations is related to the qualities of Sukhavati. He says, when I become Buddha, let me become Buddha in an environment or in a world where it has these qualities and these qualities and these qualities and these qualities. So when he was making these vows or aspirations, he was basically setting the conditions of achieving Buddha. And the significance of that is that as if the basic goal of achieving state of Buddha wasn't difficult enough, on top of that, he set conditions. He said, it's not only about purifying all my confusions and delusions and actualizing all the Buddha qualities, but I want these Buddha qualities to be actualized in the following way. And unless it can be done in this way, my journey on the path cannot be complete. So in these aspirations, 48, in some texts is 49. So sometimes you hear 49, but predominantly what you'll hear is 48. So he made these 48 vows. And one of these vows is actually that, if in the future, there is anyone who hears about me, inspired by me, and inspired by the qualities of my Pure Land, aspires to be born in my Pure Land after their life ends, as with as little as, thinking about me or my Pure Land for 10 moments of mind. If that is not sufficient to cause them to be reborn in my land, may I not be Buddha. Probably of the 48, this is the most famous one. So it is said that it is because of his power of his aspirations that he created the auspicious interdependence so that it's relatively easier for us to be reborn in that Pure Land as opposed to some other Pure Land. So according to this Amitabha's narrative. So here Kyobpa Rinpoche is saying, so where did this Sukhavati come from? Where did this Pure Land of perfection come from? Everything arose by the power of intentions, meaning power of aspirations. And that's why making aspiration prayers is said to be so powerful and so important, because it is through refining our aspirations, through refining our intentions, through intensifying our vows, that something as amazing as Sukhavati, the conditions for the manifestation, for the actualization of Sukhavati came from the power of Dharmakara's mind. And so Kyobpa Rinpoche says, whatever it is that you think, that makes you discouraged, makes you think it's not possible, makes you think it's meaningless to do. He says, do not be discouraged. Remember, even this whole world, perfect world of Sukhavati, of Amitabha, came from Dharmakara's aspirations. Next section, all sentient beings of the three realms circle about helplessly in the ocean of endless suffering, due to being mistaken in the ways of understanding their mind, of viewing their mind, this mirror of illusions. So he says, now, at the same time, don't be so proud, O yogi. So the first one, he inspires them, So maybe you become so confident. But then he says, hey, also be careful. Don't get smug. Don't get so proud. Because at the same time, where does samsara come from? It comes from not seeing our mind clearly, not understanding this mirror of illusions. And then we become deceived by it. And then we will circle helplessly in the three realms. And then again, with regards to this mind, he goes on, all the Buddhas of the three times do not view as good or bad the phenomena that we call samsara and nirvana. So the Buddhists don't say, oh, nirvana is good, oh, samsara is bad. Now, they might teach us to see the faults of samsara and the qualities of nirvana. But they are teaching those who are on this side of confusion. Once freed from confusion, Buddhists don't have a preference. Buddhists don't say, oh, no, I can't handle samsara. Oh, I love nirvana. They don't say that because that's no longer in their experience. But instead, so Kyobpa Rinpoche goes on, but instead, they pacify them into the state of simplicity. The state of simplicity is to say, it's not that samsara and nirvana is complicated right now, and then they make it simple. So to say that they pacify samsara, nirvana, good and bad into the state of simplicity is saying they recognize the non-elaborated nature of all things. Non-elaborated nature means the natural condition of things, which is neither desirable or undesirable, neither attractive nor repulsive. It is just the way it is. So this is the state of simplicity, instead of a state of, mental elaborations. This is natural, the natural state of things. So when they pacify both samsara and nirvana, or concepts of samsara and nirvana, experiences of samsara and nirvana, concepts of good, bad, desirable, undesirable, when they release them, pacify them in that sense, release them naturally into the state of simplicity, then the perfect benefit of self and others is all within one's own mind. Don't fall into wrong views, O yogi. Here specifically, don't fixate, don't solidify samsara and nirvana into a dualistic thing. That, we need to, run away from samsara and we need to get to nirvana. Don't fall into that wrong view. The next section is kind of nicely a play of metaphors. It says, in the barrel of realizing self-grasping. So self-grasping, of course, is the root of the problem. But here it says, when you realize self-grasping, when you recognize self-grasping is the problem, when you recognize, when you have strong self-grasping, normally we think, I don't want self-grasping. At least you think, that's what the Buddha said. You should not have self-grasping. But here he says, in the barrel of realizing self-grasping. How can we realize self-grasping? Well, it's hard to realize it, I think, when self-grasping isn't overtly happening. So here is not saying that you should encourage self-grasping, but it is saying, like in moments where self-grasping is very strong, there you have the potential to have a very powerful understanding of realization of what is the nature of self-grasping. So in the barrel, meaning this big tub, barrel of realizing self-grasping hides the supreme elixir of immortality. So within confusion itself, the nectar of liberation is hiding. And this supreme elixir of immortality is the oral instructions on emptiness and compassion. Now simply open the spout. So the liquid that is in the barrel, you open the spout, the liquid comes out, right? This nectar can come out. So simply open the spout of grasping and attachment. Open also has a sense of release. Simply release the spout of grasping and attachment and drink the elixir of the unmistaken natural state, my devoted student. The unification of experience and realization is the wisdom of all the Buddhas of the three times. Thus, the precious Guru has taught. We need experience. Experience are these things that arises from practice. Without experience, nyam, called nyam. Tok is hard. Tok, realization, is difficult. And experience doesn't come, nyam, unless cultivation occurs. what we often call practice, to cultivate. So if we don't cultivate purifying the confusions, if we don't cultivate accumulating merit, clearing away confusions, then nyam is not going to arise. And without nyam, then tokpa realization is difficult. So when you are able to unify your nyam, nyam is like the raw material, you could say, that tokpa can then use. And nyam can be, what we label as good, and including what we label as bad. So bad experiences that arise even in the context of cultivation, those are useful for igniting tokpa, for igniting realization. So this is 42, the illusory mirror of mind. Any questions about this before we take a quick break?
This term, nyam, previously I thought that it was like a very general term.
Yeah, no, it's experiences that arise in the context of cultivation.
Okay. And then within those, is there an idea of some being nyam and some not being nyam?
Yeah.
Okay. So you just have to find out, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, things that arise, situations and experiences that arise from practice, from cultivating. But the question is not even, the issue is not even like, needing to sit around and wonder, oh, is this nyam or is this not nyam? Only intellectually, it's a nice question or interesting question to ask, but in terms of practice, it's not necessary. If you have to look around, say, is this nyam or not nyam? Probably it is not. Okay, we'll take a quick break and then we'll begin Gongchik.